Walk into any authorized Rolex dealer right now and ask for a Submariner. Go ahead, I'll wait. What's that? They don't have any? Not a single one?
But Rolex is a multi-billion-dollar company that makes nearly 1 million watches every year.
How is it possible that you literally cannot buy their most popular models? Here's the wild part, that's exactly how they planned it.
Welcome to the most brilliant scarcity strategy ever executed in luxury goods.
And honestly, it's kind of genius and infuriating at the same time.
Right now, there are people on waitlists for Rolex watches who have been waiting for years.
Not months.
Years.
We're talking about steel watches, by the way. Not solid gold. Not diamond encrusted. Just stainless steel timepieces that cost less to make than your laptop. And yet people are literally begging authorized dealers to take their money. Some are buying watches they don't even want just to build a purchase history.
It's like applying to an Ivy League school, except the diploma tells time and costs $40,000.
Here's where it gets absolutely wild.
Because you can't buy these watches at retail, an entire shadow economy has emerged. The gray market for Rolex watches is worth billions. People are buying Submariners for $9,000 and immediately flipping them for $20,000.
A steel Daytona with a retail price of $14,000? Try finding one for less than $30,000 on the secondary market.
Rolex has accidentally created a watch stock market where their products appreciate faster than most actual investments.
It's scarcity as a business model on steroids. Let's talk numbers for a second because this is where the strategy becomes crystal clear. Rolex produces somewhere around 800,000 to 1 million watches annually. They're not some tiny boutique operation. They have massive facilities in Switzerland. They make their own steel alloys. They're vertically integrated to an almost obsessive degree. This is industrial scale production. And yet, somehow, there's never enough supply.
Compare that to other luxury watch brands who make a fraction of that number and you can actually buy their watches.
The scarcity isn't accidental. It's architectural. So how does this scarcity actually work? It starts with allocation. Rolex doesn't just ship watches to dealers and let them sell freely. Instead, they control exactly which models go where and in what quantities. An authorized dealer might get one steel Daytona per year. One. For an entire store.
Meanwhile, they're getting plenty of less popular models that nobody wants. This forces dealers into a weird position where they have all the power over customers.
Want that Submariner? Better have a good relationship with your dealer. Better buy some of those watches nobody wants first. Now here's the thing about Rolex. They didn't start out as the ultimate luxury flex. When Hans Wilsdorf founded the company in the early 1900s, Rolex was actually positioned as a tool watch. Durable. Accurate. Waterproof.
These were watches for professionals, not billionaires.
But over decades, Rolex built something more valuable than just watches.
They built an unassailable brand. Through strategic sponsorships, celebrity endorsements, and relentless marketing, Rolex became synonymous with success itself. That brand equity is the foundation that makes the scarcity strategy even possible.
Without it, the waitlists would be empty. There's an important distinction here. Rolex isn't just doing artificial scarcity like a sneaker drop. They're doing strategic scarcity. The difference?
Artificial scarcity is when you could make more but choose not to for hype. Strategic scarcity is when you deliberately align supply with brand positioning to create sustained, generational demand.
Rolex could absolutely flood the market. They have the capacity.
But doing so would destroy the very thing that makes them valuable.
The scarcity isn't a gimmick.
It's the core of the business model. It's what separates a luxury brand from a premium brand.
Let's talk about what this scarcity actually creates, the Rolex premium.
Walk into a high-end watch boutique and you'll find incredible timepieces from Omega, Tudor, even Audemars Piguet. Many of them have better finishing, more complications, more horological prestige. And yet, none of them command the same premium or hold value like Rolex.
A new Omega Seamaster loses value the second you walk out the door. A Rolex Submariner? You might actually make money. That's not because Rolex makes better watches, necessarily. It's because they've created a closed-loop ecosystem where demand permanently exceeds supply. Scarcity creates value. And value reinforces scarcity. Not all Rolex models are created equal in the scarcity game. There are the hype models, the unicorns, the watches that generate actual waitlists measured in years. The Daytona is probably the king. Paul Newman wore one and now they sell for millions at auction. The Submariner defined dive watches and remains impossible to find. The GMT Master 2, especially in Pepsi colors, has its own cult following. Even the relatively accessible Explorer has become hard to get. What's brilliant is that Rolex has created tiers of scarcity. You can't get the Daytona, so maybe you settle for the Submariner. Can't get that? Here's a Datejust. Each tier feeds the next. Here's where the strategy gets really interesting. Rolex authorized dealers are stuck in this weird position. They have customers literally begging for watches they don't have. They're sitting on inventory nobody wants. And they can't do anything about it because Rolex controls the allocation. Some dealers have started requiring customers to buy less desirable models first. Others maintain secret VIP lists. Some just tell you to check back in 3 years. The lack of transparency is actually part of the strategy. It creates mystery. It makes getting the call feel like winning the lottery. Dealers become gatekeepers, and customers become supplicants. That power dynamic is pure luxury branding. Rolex has been a master of celebrity endorsements for decades. We're not talking paid Instagram posts. We're talking deep, authentic associations with achievement. Roger Federer wears Rolex. So does Tiger Woods. James Cameron wore one to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. These aren't just ambassadors. They're validators. When you see Rolex on the wrist of someone at the peak of their field, it reinforces the brand's position. And because you can't just buy one, spotting a Rolex in the wild becomes a signal. It says you're successful enough, connected enough, patient enough to have gotten one. The celebrity associations amplify the scarcity message. If champions wear them and you can't get them, they must be worth the wait. The secondary market for Rolex watches has become its own industry. We're talking specialized dealers, authentication services, entire businesses built around flipping watches. And here's the controversial part: Rolex kind of benefits from this. Every time a steel Daytona sells for 3 times retail on the gray market, it reinforces the brand's value. It proves the scarcity is real. Sure, Rolex officially discourages flipping. They want watches on wrists, not in safes. But the secondary market acts as free marketing. It keeps Rolex in the conversation. It makes every retail purchase feel like you've won something. The gray market isn't a bug. It's a feature of the scarcity ecosystem. There's actual psychology behind why the waitlist strategy works so well. Humans value things more when they're hard to get. It's called the scarcity principle. But there's more to it. When you wait years for something, you've invested time and emotional energy. That investment makes you value the object more when you finally get it. You've also built a relationship with the dealer, created a story around the acquisition. The watch isn't just a watch anymore. It's a trophy. It's proof of patience and perseverance. Rolex understands this psychology deeply. The wait isn't a bug. It's the product. You're not buying a watch. You're buying the story of how hard it was to get. Other watch brands have tried to copy the Rolex playbook. Audemars Piguet did it successfully with the Royal Oak. Patek Philippe has always done it with certain models. But most brands can't pull it off. Why? Because scarcity only works if people actually want what you're withholding. Rolex spent a century building desire before they weaponized scarcity. They earned cultural cachet through reliability, innovation, and relentless brand building. You can't just decide to make your product scarce and expect demand to materialize. The foundation has to be there first. Rolex didn't create scarcity to build their brand. They built their brand so powerful that scarcity became possible. One reason Rolex can control scarcity so precisely is their insane level of vertical integration. They don't just assemble watches. They make their own steel alloy. They manufacture their own movements in-house. They produce their own gold. They even grow their own crystals for the watch faces. This level of control means they can regulate supply at every stage of production. They're not dependent on third-party suppliers who might flood the market. They control the entire pipeline from raw materials to finished product. Its manufacturing is moat. And it makes their scarcity strategy basically impossible to disrupt. Nobody can just make more Rolexes. Only Rolex can make Rolexes. What's remarkable about Rolex's scarcity strategy is how sustainable it is. This isn't a short-term hype play. This is a multi-generational strategy. Rolex is still privately held, which means they don't have to answer to shareholders demanding growth every quarter. They can play the long game. They can maintain scarcity even when it means leaving money on the table in the short term. Because they know that brand equity compounds. Every year the waitlist exists, every time someone finally gets the call, every celebrity spotted wearing one, the brand gets stronger. In 50 years, Rolex will probably still be doing this exact same thing. And it'll still be working. So what can we learn from Rolex's empire of scarcity? First, scarcity only works if you've built something people actually want. Second, it has to be strategic and sustainable, not just artificial hype. Third, you need complete control over your supply chain to maintain it. Fourth, the scarcity itself becomes part of the brand story and value proposition. Rolex didn't just make great watches and limit supply. They created an entire ecosystem where scarcity, prestige, secondary markets, and brand equity all reinforce each other in a virtuous cycle. It's one of the most brilliant business strategies ever executed. And the crazy part? You still can't buy a Submariner. The system works perfectly. That's how you build a multi-billion-dollar empire out of telling people no.